Yes, lads, I'm back with another video. But today I thought I'd go through, obviously, we got the transfer window back, so I'll go through some of the confirmed transfers that have gone through already this window. But the first one is Sané for 40 million. Now, obviously, for Bayern, this is a good signing. 40 million pounds, I believe. I'm not sure if it was pounds or euros, but it was 40 million, around that mark anyway. Obviously, for Bayern Munich, this is a very good signing. I mean, they do have a very good pair of wingers at the moment at the club. Obviously, adding a player like Leroy Sané to your depth isn't going to harm your club, but for such a cheap price, obviously he was unhappy at the game time he was getting at City, and I'd imagine that they've offered him more at Bayern, but this is a pretty straightforward one. They've got a world-class winger for 40 million. Obviously, could rise to around 55, I think, is the eventual fee, but still, it's an absolute bargain for Sané. Obviously, Pep Guardiola knew that he wasn't going to perform to the level he can if he wasn't happy, so they decided to cash out, which I think it's worked out well for both parties, and they both got sort of what they wanted from the deal. Next up, we have the swap deal from Barcelona and Juventus. Obviously, Arthur going to Juventus, and then Pjanic and I believe 10 million coming to Barcelona. Juventus have won this. I don't think there's any two ways about it. Pjanic is ageing, and Arthur's coming into his prime in a few years. 10 million and a player that's going out of the door in Pjanic in terms of age. I don't see how Juventus could have possibly lost this transfer. But Barcelona have wanted Pjanic for God knows how. As long as I've been on this earth, I reckon Barcelona have had an interest in Pjanic. So they got their man finally after God knows how many bids and years of wanting him. But I do think it is 3 or 4 years too late, or 2 or 3 years too late, especially if you're giving away a young piece. I think Arthur's only 22, 23 at the minute. It might be 24 coming up. But either way, he's a lot younger than Pjanic is. The transfer policy and the youth policy at Barcelona has been a lot worse than it has in recent times. Obviously, it is hard to follow up a team of Messi, Iniesta, Xavi, Busquets, Piqué, and the likes, even, Jordi Alba's, and because obviously they didn't win the league this year, which was a disappointment. And I don't think Pjanic, instead of Arthur, is going to help them, to be honest. Now, the next up is the young right back, Achraf Hakimi, or Hachimi, I think it's Hakimi. He obviously went to Inter Milan for £36 million, I believe it was. This is an unreal signing. He's one of the best young fullbacks in football. And to get him for such a slight price of 36 million, which sounds like a lot, I know. But obviously, for what his potential is and a few of the signings that you can match him up to, obviously, in the fullback position anyway, I reckon he is probably one of the best in the world out there at the minute at such a young age. So I think he's only going to blossom in that Inter Milan side that is obviously progressing forward. I think Hakimi down that right hand side or left hand side, depending on where they fancy playing him, is going to be unreal regardless, because he's playing in such a progressive team with players that are looking to put their career back on track, and it's overall a positive sort of aura surrounding that Milan team, Inter Milan obviously. And I think it's just going to help him blossom a lot. I think coming into that Inter side, which are playing such free-flowing football at the minute, and obviously scoring a decent amount of goals, will only help him as he develops and probably into one of the, if not the best right back in the world at one point in his career. Next up, obviously, we got the double transfer to Chelsea and Hakim Ziyech and Timo Werner. Ziyech went for 36 million, whereas Werner was 47 million. Both transfers are subject to rise to clauses, I believe. I'll start off with Ziyech. He's a very dynamic player that can play anywhere ahead of the midfield in a way. I don't know where he's going to fit into that team, and I'm sure he'll be a great addition wherever he plays, but in my opinion, his best position is down the middle in Cam, and I don't believe they're willing to sacrifice that position, I think, which Mason Mount is relatively locked down for him, unless he shows a lot in his first season. So we'll have to see how that goes. Obviously, the second one is Timo Werner, which was obviously heavily linked to Liverpool. I don't think Liverpool would have been the right place for him to develop his career. Obviously, he went for £47 million. I think that's a good price. He wanted to leave. He's wanted to leave for a while, but I do think that it's a position where Chelsea were not necessarily strong, but they had 3 players competing to play in that position already, in Tammy Abraham, Michy Batshuayi, who was terrible, don't get me wrong, and now Olivier Giroud, who, in my opinion, is still an extremely good striker, and he showed that by scoring quite a few goals towards the end of the season. But I believe, obviously, Werner is the best out of those strikers, but I still stand by the fact that I believe Olivier Giroud right now is better than Tammy Abraham. Give me all the hate you want, it's true. I think Tammy Abraham needs to develop his all-round game a lot more. Giroud is criminally underrated. And then the last signing is obviously related to Jude Bellingham leaving Birmingham for £20 million, €25 million, somewhere around that mark anyway. They overpaid for him as of now, yes. As of if he develops into the potential that he has, no, obviously. One thing I want to touch on before I touch on Jude Bellingham is Birmingham retired his number at age 17 after scoring 4 goals and getting like 6 assists in 40 games for the club. If every other club did that, they'd have no numbers. It's an absolute joke. I mean, I feel sorry for Birmingham fans at the minute because they're an absolute joke of a club. Your club's just an absolute banter club. I know the feeling. But on to Jude Bellingham, obviously. He's a good lad. He's got a lot. He seems to have a good attitude about his football. He seems to want to play and want to improve. He was obviously emotional to leave Birmingham. Obviously, he's been there since he was a young lad. I think it's going to help Birmingham a lot more than it would if they kept him, because they need investment in that team in a lot more positions than just that central role. I mean, obviously, they've done some interesting business, as Birmingham fans would probably tell you. I don't really agree with the business they've done, but I think the Bellingham money is not going to be reinvested into transfers anyway. It'll be invested into all the places around the club, but I do think Birmingham needed investment in a lot more areas than just that sort of the role that Bellingham played. So I think both teams have won this transfer, don't get me wrong. He's 17 and they've sold him for 20 million plus, which is unreal. And for a championship team, the transfer fee is unheard of. But that'll do it for the actual confirmed transfers. If you did like the video, if you didn't like it, leave some personal abuse in the comments section. That went down like a lead balloon. But yeah, I appreciate everyone that watches the videos, and I appreciate everyone that's still here after I took a very long extended leave. I'll see you in the next video, boys.